Hello and welcome to the next installation. Um, Today we're going to talk about concepts in Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is Understanding Prejudice and Ourselves. So when we talk about what is prejudice, remember back to Chapter 1, the book defines prejudice as a negative attitude toward a group and individuals perceived to be members of that group, being predisposed to behave negatively toward members of a group. And so why are we predisposed to treat people in a negative way? Again, when we think about what our values are and what cultural aspects have developed our behaviors and our thoughts and our feelings, that leads into why we become prejudiced against certain folks. So what I want to talk about in this video is how we continue to perpetuate those prejudices. How we rationalize them, because when we consider what's going on in our current society today, all of it that is happening, really our worlds are being rocked right now. And as I go through these three different rationalizations that people will use to perpetuate prejudices, and perpetuating meaning keep them going, not to discredit them or to reduce them. I would encourage you, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, encourage you to look for these rationalizations in media, in not just, like your TV media, the news outlets, but your social media as well, your friends and family. Are they using some of these rationalizations? How are they using these rationalizations? And then consider, what is it that you can do about that? So really, truly, the goal is that by the end of this course, you have some knowledge and you have some tools in your pocket that when you are confronted with a prejudice or bigotry or discrimination and discriminatory acts, when you see those happening, when you experience them personally, or if you see them taking place, you can do something, say something, be somebody who helps to change the narrative, who helps to change the trajectory of where it's going. So the three rationalizations that we see most often are, first one is denial rationalization. So this is a person who refuses to recognize that there are problems in our society. There are, we know that there are. Otherwise, a course like this wouldn't really be necessary. But we do have issues in our society, and it's so important that we address them and that we do it so that everybody benefits from it, not just a small group of folks. So denial rationalization, the most common use of this, what we see is when people will say, well, now we're experiencing reverse discrimination. Really, women and minority groups, they get the best jobs because of affirmative action. So because companies have quotas that they have to meet, women and minorities are hired before white men are now. And so it's reverse discrimination. So that's one of the denial rationalizations that we see. And it's really troubling because those folks deny that there's even a problem. And so that perpetuates the prejudice that lets it allow to be continued. The second one, and this is probably one I see the most from my position within my community, within the college community as an instructor, victim blaming is where I see a lot of perpetualization of prejudices continue. So what is victim blaming? It is the minority group. It is the idea that the minority group is who has the deficiency. They're what's wrong, not society. There isn't anything wrong with society. It's these members of the minority group who have this perceived idea that they're being victimized. But really, so a lot of times when we see victim blaming taking place, we hear, well, if people don't want to be poor anymore, they just have to work harder. When I hear that, I think I know a lot of people who are in that position where they're poor. Um, and of course, right, poverty is relative. So depending on where you live, what your income looks like in to be considered impoverished changes, right? So in the United States, it's very different from a developing country and what poverty looks like there. So within our society, I know a number of people who have 2 and 3 and sometimes even 4 jobs. They work damn hard, and yet they still find themselves in poverty. We know that education leads us out of poverty. But when we don't have access to good quality education, it makes it difficult to move beyond where we are. Um, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that people can't rise above that, but not everybody does, and not everybody can, because not everybody has the resources available to them. So a lot of times when we hear people being victim blamed, the phrase "stop being so sensitive." It's stop being so sensitive. Why are you so worked up about that? What they fail to recognize, what they fail to understand is that people are worked up about whatever it is because they've experienced it for so long, repeatedly, over and over again. It's a regular occurrence in their lives, whether it is the discrimination, the prejudice, people blaming the victims or denying that there's a problem. That, again, it perpetuates the issue, it perpetuates what's going on. And when you tell somebody to stop being so sensitive, it's like, why are you crying? You have no reason to cry. Well, there obviously is a reason if that person, a child, is crying, right? So what is it? Deep down, find out what's the root of that. The third rationalization for perpetuating prejudice is avoidance rationalization. This allows it acknowledges the existence of a problem, but avoids confronting the problem by offering a partial solution or a false solution. So, well, if we would do this, and oftentimes those partial solutions really attack a symptom of the problem and not the root cause. And so, like, I think the book gives an example of requiring all students to take an ethics course, right? Because we see unethical behavior. So if we have every student take an ethics course, that should fix the problem, right? Well, unless we really get into the why the unethical behavior exists in the first place, we really can't address the problem. We're putting a Band-Aid on what we perceive to be the issue, but it's truly a symptom, not the cause. Because a lot of times, and if it's not a partial solution, then it's a false solution. It's something that if you were to implement the solution, it really would have an effect or an impact on the issue itself to make any difference at all. And really there's this idea of it'll just go away if we don't address it, if we don't think about it. If I turn and I don't pay attention to what's going on, I don't have to worry about it. Again, if it doesn't impact me, involve me directly, then is it really happening? Do I really have to address it? Yes, I know that there are issues taking place in our society. I know that there's racism. I know that there's sexism. I know that there's ageism. But what can I do about it? Like, not really anything. So I'm just going to avoid the issue altogether rather than speak up and stand up and cause action, right? Because it's easier. When you live in small communities and rural communities, or I shouldn't say rural, I should say in any community where your opinion differs greatly from the majority of folks, it's sometimes just easier to acknowledge that a problem exists, but why should I bother? Because one, it's not going to impact me or anybody around me, so does it really matter? Or because I really don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be that person who always has to speak out about everything and use my voice when nobody really cares. So we see that type of rationalization taking place. So again, I would challenge you to really pay attention in the next week, or really beyond, but really focus this week, next week, on looking for people using these different types of rationalizations to just kind of, one, it really, the repetition of it helps you to remember what they are. And two, it kind of gets you, you're looking for it, so you're seeing where it is, but then that helps you to acknowledge and learn about the issues that are out there, the issues that our society really is facing, that really do need to be addressed. And I see with so much that's going on in our country in the last week, couple weeks, couple months, when we went from the pandemic to the protests, and what I see, and even, gosh, even further back than that, I think of the shooting at Marjorie Douglas Stoneman High School, and the young people of today saying no more, saying we need to speak our voices. We need to, if we want change to happen, we need to be that change. And I see a lot of things in the future that are going to be changing because of it, just this culmination of all of these different aspects of our society, where it's the same group of folks who are, the prejudice is perpetuated. And I see it being addressed. I see that our society is going to be better for everything that's taken place, and inequities are going to be addressed. I truly hope that that's the case. I can see that that's what's happening, and I'm excited to see that happen because it's what's needed. It truly is what's needed. I understand that the issues that are taking place in other places across the country aren't happening in my backyard overtly. They're not happening in my backyard where I can walk out on the street and point to it and say, look, this is what it is. But it is happening, and we need to identify it. So that's our video for today, rationalization of prejudices, and how people are able to do so. So be on the lookout for those, and we'll talk to you in the next video.